All right, let's get right into it. For anyone who's ever worn a cap and gown, there's that one huge question that pops up right after. Was it all worth it? Well, today, we're going to unpack the real value of that degree, and the data tells a pretty fascinating story. So you've done it. You've got the diploma, you've shaken all the hands, and now you're staring down the job market. It can honestly feel like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, right? If that's you, you're not alone. But the story of what happens next isn't quite what you might think.
You see, the thing is, the real value of a degree is kind of like a tale of two timelines. There's the immediate reality, what happens right after you graduate, and then there's a picture 3 years down the line. And trust me, those two pictures, they look worlds apart.
So let's start at the beginning. You're fresh out, diploma in hand. What does the world actually look like in those first few months? Let's see what the data tells us, because it paints a very clear picture.
Okay, so right out of the gate, we're talking just 4 to 6 months later, about 71% of undergrads have landed a full-time job. That's pretty solid, right? But it also means that nearly 30%, almost 1 in 3, are still hunting for that full-time gig.
And for those who do get that full-time job, the median starting salary is just under $66,000. Think of this as the starting line. It's the financial baseline for the average grad's career.
And then there's this really important piece of the puzzle, underemployment. Basically, it means that almost 1 in 5 graduates have a job, but they're stuck working part-time when they really want more hours. This number really captures that initial struggle to get a firm foothold in the professional world.
Okay, but that was just chapter 1. Let's hit the fast forward button and jump 3 years into the future. This is where we see the leap. It's the moment where the long-term value of that degree really starts to shine. So, how much does the picture actually change? Let's take a look.
And whoa, the change is dramatic. That 71% full-time employment rate, it absolutely skyrockets to over 91%. That is a massive 20-point jump. The key takeaway here is that while it might not happen overnight, the vast majority of graduates do find that solid full-time position.
So what about the money? Well, the median salary leaps by more than a third, from around $66,000 to over $88,000. That's not just a small bump. That is some serious financial growth. It shows that investment in education is really starting to pay dividends.
And remember that almost 1 in 5 grads who are underemployed, that number just nosedives. It drops by 2/3, all the way down to just over 6%. This shows that graduates aren't just finding any job. They're securing the stable, full-time work they were hoping for.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. You'd probably think that super specific vocational degrees like rehabilitation have the best outcomes. And they do, start out strong. But look at the change. Creative arts grads see a nearly 32 percentage point jump in full-time work. It's this catch-up effect, which suggests that those broader skills you get from generalist degrees become way more valuable as your career goes on.
So the overall trend is incredibly positive. But the data also makes it very clear that not all journeys are created equal. When we dig a little deeper into the numbers, we find some really important nuances that we just can't ignore.
And here is a very sobering reality. Right after graduation, there's already a $3,000 median salary gap between men and women. 3 years later, that gap doesn't shrink. It actually more than doubles to $7,000. It's a stark reminder of the complex, systemic issues that are still at play well after graduation day.
The path is also pretty different for international graduates. They start out with a much lower full-time employment rate, just under 47%. But check out this incredible catch-up. It nearly doubles to over 83% in just 3 years. That's amazing. But even so, a pretty significant salary gap of over $10,000 is still there, which really highlights the unique hurdles they're facing.
Okay, so after swimming through all that data, what are the big takeaways here? Let's boil it all down to 3 key points that really get to the heart of what this all means for you.
First, and this is a big one, your first job at a university is just a starting point. It is not your destination. The data couldn't be clearer that your career path gets so much better with a little time. Second, patience pays off. Especially for those with more generalist degrees who might have a slower start, they often see the biggest improvements. It's all about playing the long game. And finally, we have to acknowledge that systemic gaps are very real. The data makes it clear that opportunity isn't always equal, and that's a reality we just can't ignore.
So all of this leaves us with a final question to think about.
When you look at this whole story, this tale of two timelines with the tough start and the strong finish, it really forces you to ask, is building a career truly a sprint, or is it, in fact, a marathon?